But we got a card coming out this weekend, UFC London. And honestly, it's not bad. It's the UFC in London, so they put in some effort. I think it was the Heavy Hands boys I heard say, but this is like the last thing they sort of try for when they're taking the show on the road and they go to Britain. They actually do they put in a bit of effort, probably not as much effort as last time. Certainly the tickets this time. The tickets for UFC London cards are always a disaster, partly because of the ridiculous state of the law in the UK, which means that all the tickets can immediately be bought up by automated ticket touts who then sell them on at twice the price. So the ticket prices for this event were something like £600 for the cheapest seat. And you're just like, firstly, there's a cost of living crisis going on. Secondly, fucking £600 for anything I wouldn't pay. I've been front row for various events, boxing, kickboxing, even the UFC, and it's not even that great. It's just like you get a lot more out of the experience watching it in terms of like comforts and being able to see the action better and not having to engage with people generally sitting at home. I think it was Ben Fox and Chad Dundas on their podcast. They were saying a long time ago, but they were saying like the only reason to go to events anymore is to see other people at events, to see other people in the press. I mean, I thought about any time they announce these things, I'm always like, well, I could go with some mates, we could go and enjoy it. Then you just look at the price of it and you're like, well, no, that's like me and some mates could go on a holiday to Greece or something and really push the boat out and get some cool shit and spend tons of money. I mean, the chances are if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably big into fights anyway. So it's I am big into fights and I still don't think that these prices were anything near reasonable. So it turned out that they didn't sell a load of tickets. So there may or may not be large sections of empty seating at the arena tonight. But it's kind of in line with how the UFC used Abus to get Strickland over. We looked at Abus. I didn't know anything about him apart from the Dustin Holtz's, whatever his name is, fight. Went back and looked at his PFL fights. Was not impressed. He gassed out in basically any of them that went past the first round. And he got knocked out by a 40-year-old on the first punch. So I was like, people going, well, why did he get a ranked opponent so soon? Were they trying to push him? No, because they wanted to make the ranked opponent look good. It was a tailor-made fight. And they have managed to bounce Sean Strickland into a title shot off it. What we got going on here with a couple of these fights is deliberate efforts to try and get people over. Tom Aspinall's fighting Marcin Tybura. Now, Tybura is on like an 8-1 streak, if you can call it a streak. I mean, it's a streak in the same way that you might leave it in your pants. But going back to the end of 2019, he's only lost once to Alexander Volkov. However, he has looked shite in a lot of those fights. I heard someone describe him as his best skill is being there for 25 minutes. So that is an interesting test in itself because Tom Aspinall is not a guy who's been there for 25 minutes. Tom Aspinall is a guy who comes out and like the raw ability to do things as a heavyweight, actual technical competence and also being 250 pounds just blows people out of the water immediately. Has never been to a decision, has never even been to a third round. So the idea that Marcin Tybura is going to be there jiggling his tits and just absorbing blows and getting taken down, and then 15 minutes in, he's still going to be there, and Tom Aspinall might have to go, oh, this isn't good. That's quite intriguing. The only problem is that if Tom Aspinall doesn't get him out there quickly, I'm stuck watching a Marcin Tybura fight. And man, 2016, 2015, God knows when. I mean, I feel like I was working at Fightland for about 10 years, but I was only there for about 3 or 4. And I think it was 2016. When was he fighting Doom? I think it was 2017, yeah. He was in a main event, and I had to try and sell Marcin Tybura. And I was like, this guy is not particularly interesting. He's not particularly good. The main thing about him is that he strikes like he can't remember which foot he puts forward. I put up a clip of this, but like every fight, he's just sort of like stumbling with his feet almost level. And then he'll change stances for a minute and then he'll change back. And it's like switch hitting if you didn't want to, if your body was forcing you to. And come to think of it, I think he's only been the full 25 minutes the one time against Verdum when he headlined back in the day. Mercifully, they haven't. I don't think he's headlined any other events. So that must have been the time I was writing about him. So yeah, even then, that was a fight he lost. So Even the cardio test might not be that much. I mean, someone said he fraud checked Alexander Romanov. No, he didn't. They both gassed the fuck out in one round because it was Salt Lake City. That was one of the worst fights I've ever seen. And that is my overwhelming memory of UFC Salt Lake City and why I'm not super hyped for the next one. But yes, Aspinall, there's all kinds of reasons to be excited. We were all ready for it to start taking off when he was fighting Curtis Blades. And then his knee exploded. And then, as he said, apparently he's had knee problems for a long time. And that was just it giving out at last. But if he comes back in anything like the form he's been looking like, Tybura should be... I mean, he's survivable, but it should be easy work. And a bit of a showcase. Then Molly McCann is fighting an absolute bum in the co-main. Julia Stolyarenko. Only win is that armbar over Jessica Rose Clark. 5 losses in the UFC, 1 win. Changing weight class at least for this fight. But, it's a winnable one for Molly McCann. I don't think Molly McCann's bad, to be honest. I think people really over-egged her being bad pudding because they were so mad about her, being front and centre of the UFC's push. But she was always passable. I like her boxing. She moves well and throws in combinations. When she was handling people like Priscilla Cachoeira, that was about what she can do. That was. I mean, she did knock out Hannah Goldie, who was doing all right for herself. She's not bad. I mean, she's not best in the world territory, but she's not as terrible as they say she is. Now, the real excitement of this card, Nathaniel Wood versus Andre Fili. Love this fight.